Today I'm talking about the causes of irritable bowel syndrome. Hi there, my name is Sue. Welcome to my channel. If you've not been here before, I had irritable bowel syndrome with diarrhea for decades, and now I don't. So I just did a video about that, and you can check that video out here if you want to go and have a look at my story. But today I'm just going to talk about the causes of irritable bowel syndrome and why it actually happens. So first of all, what is irritable bowel syndrome? So irritable bowel syndrome is just a name that is given to any kind of bowel issue that's on and off and causing problems. And so if you go to the doctor and they send you for tests and they can't find what is actually wrong with you, then they will generally tell you you've got irritable bowel syndrome or IBS. So, that can include diarrhea, sporadic diarrhea that, comes and goes, or constant diarrhea. It can include constipation. So some people are just chronically constipated, having to use laxatives and things like that to go to the toilet because they can't go on their own. And then it can be alternating. So some people will get diarrhea and then the next thing they're constipated and then they're diarrhea again. So some people get a lot of gas and bloating and discomfort in their bowel. And, they just know things that aren't right, but there's no kind of real answer or understanding of the cause of what's actually going on. But the main causes, so the causes of IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, the first one is diet. Okay, so this is a big part of the reason why IBS is so common these days, is because so many people are living on ultra-processed foods. So these ultra-processed foods, this is all the stuff that's in the supermarket in packets and boxes and everything in the centre of the supermarket on the shelves. And it's not food. It is not food. It's stuff that's made in a factory. Tastes really good, a lot of it. Super addictive. But it's not food. It contains all sorts of, chemical additives and colours and things that our bodies just don't understand. And these things that are in this food are feeding bacteria in our digestive system and causing the populations of some of these bad bacteria and bacteria that are causing problems to overgrow and kind of crowd out the good bacteria and the beneficial bacteria. So things get unbalanced, and that is a big part of what causes IBS and a huge part of the reason why so many people have it these days. And so there are some things that are, in foods or part of foods that can cause, IBS symptoms that are quite common. These can be certain types of food additives. Some of the starches and things that are in a lot of these ultra-processed foods and packaged foods can cause IBS symptoms commonly. And then you've got things like gluten. So gluten is a really common cause of IBS for people. And some people, a lot of people just going off gluten will make a huge difference to the way that their bowel functions. Corn is another one. So there's a lot of corn in processed and packaged foods, and the corn, a lot of it is GMO corn. A big part of the problem with the GMO corn is that it has something in it. So it's been bred to kill insects and things, and so that substance that's in there harms our microbiome, and so it can cause imbalance in our microbiome as well. So if you look at the ingredient labels on most packaged foods, a lot of them contain corn, and a lot of the gluten-free products contain corn. So it makes it tricky if you go off gluten, and gluten is a big part of the problem, but you're still having issues and you're eating processed and packaged gluten-free products. It can be the corn that's in there that's also causing the problems for you. Eggs are another really common one, and dairy as well. So they're kind of really common food sensitivities or allergens that can upset people's bowel, but usually that's because the microbiome has a problem, and that's why they are actually causing symptoms a lot of the time. And some other things that commonly cause bowel issues, things like alcohol. Alcohol can definitely cause bowel problems, and coffee. Coffee is another one because coffee is kind of is an irritant to the bowel, and that's why it makes people go to the toilet. A lot of people rely on it in the morning to actually go and do their poop, and that is because the coffee is actually an irritant and makes the bowel go. So if you have irritable bowel syndrome and are having symptoms, especially if you have diarrhea, coffee might not be the best thing for you. So the next thing that can cause or contribute to irritable bowel syndrome is stress. Stress is huge. And most people who have irritable bowel syndrome with diarrhea notice that stress is a player in those symptoms. And that is because our gut and our brain are very much connected, and what's going on in your brain affects your gut, and so that's a huge one. And so things like meditation can really help, lowering your stress levels, getting out in nature, changing your job if you need to, getting rid of the family members that are annoying you, that can all help. Just all the way you think about things, changing the way that you actually process things and think about things can make a big difference. But meditation, I can't recommend meditation highly enough. It really, really helps. Also, vagus nerve activation techniques can really help as well. So things like gargling and humming, and there's lots of different ones, tapping up behind your ears. There's lots of different ways. If you do a search for vagus nerve stimulation, and you will find different ways of doing that, and that can really help as well, because that vagus nerve connects the brain and the gut, and that's part of what goes on when we are stressed, and our stress levels are affecting our gut and our bowel. So the next thing that can definitely cause or contribute to irritable bowel syndrome is SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Now, this is what tripped me up when I started on my carnivore journey, because I was still having so much issue with my bowel. And I knew about SIBO, but I didn't think it affected me, because my problem was with my large intestine and not my small intestine. And I didn't understand how SIBO actually works. But SIBO can very definitely be a huge cause or contributor to bowel issues, and that is because it's all connected. It's all connected, and I should have known that because I work on people's bodies, and I know that everything's connected, but I didn't think about that part. So small intestinal bacterial overgrowth can be caused by numerous things. Gallbladder health can really make a difference with SIBO. So if your gallbladder is not working properly, and bile isn't being released, or not enough bile is being released, that can allow bacteria to overgrow in your small intestine. Eating a low-fat diet over, a few years or whatever, eating a vegetarian diet or a vegan diet, can cause your gallbladder to become sluggish and your bile to become sludgy, and can cause stones. So that is actually really common, and this is something that I experienced myself. And so the bile isn't being released, and the bile has a cleaning action in the small intestine that helps to flush out bacteria and fungi that shouldn't be there. And so if not enough bile is being released, that can definitely contribute to small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. There's a couple of basically different scenarios that happen with SIBO. So depending on the bacteria that are overgrowing in your small intestine, they can either be methane dominant or hydrogen dominant. And then there's also a hydrogen sulfide dominant form as well that's been kind of more recently discovered. Now, these can be tested using by the breath. So if you go kind of through a functional medicine practitioner and go, or a doctor and go and get tested, you have to drink this sugar syrup stuff and then test over multiple hours. It's quite a hassle, but there's now a device that you can use at home. I haven't tried it, but it's got really good reviews. I'll pop a link to it below, where you can actually test yourself. The hydrogen dominant form of SIBO tends to cause diarrhea, and the methane dominant form tends to cause constipation. The hydrogen form of SIBO is more common, I believe, and that's the one that causes the diarrhea. And but a lot of people also suffer with chronic constipation, and that's generally the methane form of SIBO. SIBO can also be caused by antibiotic use or using pharmaceutical drugs such as non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs or drugs that lower your stomach acid. So low stomach acid is another cause. So when you're eating food and it's got bacteria and fungi and things on it, which I mean a lot of our food does, our stomach acid should kill that. But if we are lacking in stomach acid, either because of the way that our health is or because we're taking a drug that's artificially lowering it, then that can allow those bacteria and fungi through into your small intestine where they can overgrow. Now, if you are exposed to mold, as I was, and you have mold colonizing your body, that can also cause SIBO as well, and can be basically a form of SIBO. Another cause can be a lack of motility in your small intestine. So your small intestine is about 20 odd feet long, and it's that windy thing. If you look at pictures of your digestive system, it's the bit that winds all over the place. And so it goes from your stomach into your small intestine, that winds all over the place where your food, the nutrients are absorbed out of your food. And then that gets to your large intestine, and that's where your poop's made, and then the poop comes out your body. So that's basically how it all goes. Now, in the small intestine and your large intestine, there should be peristalsis. So the muscles in that are supposed to be, it's like a wave motion, and it pushes it down and down and down and down until it gets to the large intestine. Now, if that's not working properly and your food is sitting too long in the small intestine, that can also cause bacterial overgrowth. There are motility supplements, and I did take one of those for a while. I'll pop a link to that below. Motility supplements can also help with that. Some people get spectacular results if they have SIBO, but just by taking a motility supplement. So that is worth trying as well. And as I mentioned before, if your gallbladder is not working properly, that can cause a problem. Having a gallbladder that's not working properly can also directly cause diarrhea, because when our food goes in through our stomach and it's broken down by the stomach acid, that stomach acid, that's hydrochloric acid, if that gets into your small intestine, it's going to burn holes in it, right? So what happens is the stomach acid and the food mix together in the stomach, and that becomes chyme, and it's highly acidic. And then when it leaves the stomach and goes into the small intestine, that's where the gallbladder is supposed to release the bile into the small intestine, and the bile is alkaline, and so it basically puts out the fire that is the stomach acid in that chyme. Now, if your gallbladder isn't working properly or not working at all, and the bile doesn't come in at the right time, then your body is going to bring water into the small intestine to flush that stomach acid and that chyme through as quickly as possible to stop it from burning holes in your small intestine, and that directly can cause diarrhea. So if your gallbladder isn't working properly, then that could be your whole problem. It just really depends. If you have IBS diarrhea and suspect that you have SIBO, then if you don't want to, can't be bothered getting tested or whatever. I mean, that was me. Didn't get tested. I just decided to try a SIBO protocol. I would highly recommend that you read Dr. William Davis's book. I've got a link to that below the video as well. And trying his SIBO protocol, because that really made a huge difference to me. I followed his protocol for probably about 6 months or so using the SIBO yogurt, and I still make it occasionally. I have videos on how to make the yogurt and the difference that it made to me. Even if you watch my most recent video where I'm talking about my IBS diarrhea and how I've cured it, I speak about that in there. And then the last cause that I want to talk about today is parasites. So parasites are a really common problem. Most of us have them. When they, depending on what varieties we have and how many of them we have, they can become a real issue. Unfortunately, our doctors aren't trained to really look for parasites. A lot of doctors don't even think that they're really an issue in our Western nations, and they are extremely wrong. Most people know that there are parasites in third world countries, and in those countries they do parasite cleanses regularly. But in our countries, in these kind of nations where we think that we're too clean for parasites, New Zealand, Australia, the USA, United Kingdom, Canada. A lot of people will go through their whole lives without even doing a parasite cleanse. And from what I've learned, I suspect highly that parasites are behind a lot of the chronic illness that's actually going on, because the parasites like all the things that are bad for us. They like all those ultra-processed foods, and they like the sugars and the starches, and they like the genetically modified stuff, and they like the chemicals that we use in our skincare, and they like the chemicals that we use in our cleaning products. And so all of these things are contributing to our parasite load. And so parasite cleansing can really, really help. Now, there are lots of different ways to do that, and the general recommendation, what I'm doing is to alternate the different herbs and things like that, and you just change it up, use different things. I mean, there are pharmaceutical products you can use, like the Ivor stuff that was so discredited over the last 4 years. That can be used, but there are also herbal products that are probably better than that, and lots of them. So things like black cumin seed oil, I'll put a link to that below. That is one of my favorites. Wormwood, black walnut, pumpkin seed, garlic. There's lots of different essential oils that you can use that are anti-parasitic. There's lots of different things. And so my approach to this is to just switch it up. I mean, I realized I had a parasite problem when I started taking black seed oil every day, because it became blatantly obvious as they started to exit my body that they were there. But going forward, I am planning on using wormwood. There's some really good research on wormwood for bowel diseases such as Crohn's, and so I will try and remember to pop some link to a couple of those below, or you can Google them and you'll find them. There's plenty of different commercial brands that you can buy, blends of herbs that are put together for parasite cleansing. And you can do something as simple as growing wormwood in your garden and making a tea out of it. And so I've got rid of my IBS diarrhea using a carnivore diet and some protocols to address these things, SIBO and parasites and my gallbladder. And I've spoken about those in that last video. And when you think about it, like when you actually look into parasites, most people think of parasites as being worms, but the parasites also includes anything that's in your body that is taking from you and not giving. So that includes things like mold and fungi, bacterias, pathogenic bacterias or bad bacterias, viruses. And so, all of these things can be living in our bodies and they shouldn't be there, or they're in too high in numbers and are causing problems. So that's something to consider, avoiding things like antibiotics and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs because they damage your digestive system and your microbiome, and basically just cleaning up your life and living as human appropriately as you can. All of that's going to help. So that's the causes that I wanted to talk about today of irritable bowel syndrome. That's what I have learned through my own experience and my own journey. As I've said, I have videos talking about all of this stuff. My most recent video, I have spoken about what I have done and how I've achieved what I've achieved at length. If you've got any comments or questions, please pop them below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Also, I'll be aware that I have a Facebook group called Carnivore Healing on Facebook, and I've got a link to that below. I've also got a Carnivore Healing group on x.com. I've created them as a place for people to share their healing success stories on a carnivore diet, but also a place for people to get support and get questions answered, etc., etc. So if you want to join those, then follow the links and go and join those. So if you like this video, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like and share with anybody who you think may be interested. And I thank you very much for watching me today, and I will talk to you again another day. Goodbye for now.